good afternoon for you.
Very good morning, good afternoon, and for good evening for some of us.
Of course, yes.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too. So I'm trying to connect to my, I'm gonna share my screen, and I know that some of them have been waiting a little bit, so I'm gonna try to be on time. So just let me know when my screen is on.
Excellent. You
And
can
I try to have,
start off.
yes, you can hear me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Screen is on.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead, Sarah.
Thank you so much. So, hi everyone, and really, I'm happy and honored to be with you today as this virtual HRM summit for India. So, some of today might be thinking, well, diversity and inclusion again. You know, this topic has been obviously used so many times in so many places and overused so many times that many of us actually lost track and lost its true meaning. So I cannot see all the participants. I don't know if I should be able to see them all.
No, you won't be able to see, but they can see you, and they can talk
good.
via chat and ask questions.
Okay, so I'll have the chat next to me also. So the majority today. Sorry.
It's working well. Go ahead.
So the majority could think of diversity and inclusion today as a topic that is purely corporate. Some of you guys also would probably think that it's only a matter of hiring more women in the workplace. Or with COVID, it could be related to flexibility at work or promoting virtual and remote working. What's more dangerous is that unfortunately today we see that a lot of people don't understand anymore how does it impact them personally, or how we as individuals, not only in the corporate on the corporate level, can promote it and really can play an important role in promoting diversity and inclusion. So this
Sorry,
is
Sarah, just if you can give me a minute. Inclusion Begins With You is the book that you're writing. Tell us about that, and before you move on, if you
Absolutely.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. So yes, the book is going to be published by end of the month, and it definitely talks a lot about what I'm going to be covering in this session. So it's really about how we as individuals can promote diversity and inclusion beyond the corporate world, as individuals within our societies and communities, and really how inclusion starts with you and each one of you. So stay tuned to it. I'll be talking more about it in the coming months, and of course on my LinkedIn and all of that. So it's going to be on Amazon also in India, so you'll be able to order it as soon as it's out. So yeah, many of the topics will be also connected to this.
Excellent. Please carry on.
Thank you for highlighting. So yes, diversity and inclusion is a lot about what you see on the screen. It's about equality, it's about gender, it's about diverse plans and network and growth. It's about a lot of things. And when I'm here today because I am a diversity and inclusion champion. And for me, today is a call for you guys to become also diversity and inclusion champions and help me drive an enabled and inclusive world that promotes all kinds of diversities. And let me tell you how, not only within the corporate world, but also socially and individually. As a start, it's good to align on the basics. It's good to agree and say, okay, we all know, we've all heard, we've all read about the benefits of diversity and inclusion in the corporate world. So we see industry analysts and consultants like Deloitte, Ernst & Young, McKinsey, and a lot of consultancies and research companies promote or talk about, highlight how diversity actually enhances innovation, improves problem solving or taking decisions because of the different perspectives and experiences people get, which impacts obviously profitability, and a company that does well has people motivated to go the extra mile. So engagement, turnover, all of that would be positively improved, which would play an important role in employer branding, thus our ability to attract the best talent in the market. So a lot of research, be it scientific or today we will not challenge any of these assumptions that have obviously been rather discussed or highlighted or researched through years and years of scientific and human research. But today what we're going to do is actually talk how beneath and beyond that ideal workplace we want with all of these factors, how actually we need to acknowledge that diversity and inclusion impacts our society as well. It is an aspect that really has greater influence on how I, you, and everyone else can promote a world that respects people's differences and value their uniqueness. So it is actually a topic not only in corporate, but also corporate and anything beyond. So we know that everyone is unique. And everyone seeks that sense of belonging to a society that values their differences. And when we talk about belonging, we shouldn't talk about blending ourselves or blending, or I would say redefining ourselves, our characters, our mindsets, our lifestyles, our ambitions into what would be considered the norm of society. It is not about that. It's really about choosing as an individuals and being able to be who we want to be in a society that will respect us regardless and value our uniqueness. So there are multiple ways that we can consider when building that kind of society that we aspire for. And it's not easy. But today we will focus on 3 things that we as individuals might not be aware of, or we've lost, we've ignored for some reason, or we tend to forget for some reason. So there might be minor, but it's really a start for, or a solid milestone for change. The first one is focus on inclusive behaviors. And this is something that doesn't have to be driven by organizations. It doesn't have to be driven by big, CEOs. It is something that we as individuals need to start doing. What does it mean, focus on inclusive behaviors? Simple. Ask ourselves 6 questions. Start by asking ourselves, how inclusive are we? Because sometimes we don't know what does it mean to be inclusive. So ask ourselves, am I self-aware of how preconceived views can influence my behaviors towards others? Do I treat others with respect and value their worth and judgment, worth without judging them? Do I listen before I talk and observe and learn from others, from their perspectives and experiences? Do I openly admit that I made a mistake? And do I concentrate on the strength of people rather than their weaknesses and deficits? And do I invite people to speak up and give their views and opinions, even if those might be opposing to mine? This is not rocket science, I must admit, but it is a starting point to self-check and self-assess how inclusive are we versus others, or how inclusive are we towards others who are different from us. So this is number 1. Number 2, use inclusive language. We need to challenge the language that we have learned growing up. This language, unfortunately, is commonly a gendered language that assumes connections between jobs, roles, and gender. We want to promote a world where both men and women can have the choice to decide which role they want to play, which job they want to assume, and who they want to be. It's simple, it's not rocket science, but it's, again, a starting point for us to become more inclusive. So this list has been actually provided by UN Women to highlight or to create some awareness about the things that we do unconsciously. And by starting to use these words, actually, it is an exercise that will help us realize some biases and stereotypes that we have built over time since we were young kids. So this is step number 2. Start using inclusive language in your day-to-day discussions. And number 3, avoid microaggressions. Microaggressions are similar to carbon monoxide. They are invisible but potentially lethal. Microaggressions are small micro messages that individuals send every day, and while thinking that they are harmless, they are actually proven to demoralize people. And how? Unfortunately, there's nothing micro about micro messages. So I've shown some big examples, but there are also simple examples of things we do every day unconsciously, like looking at our WhatsApp when someone is talking to us, or maybe sighing loudly in a gathering, could be at work or could be at home. So there are small but yet dangerous examples that can break the feeling of inclusion of people. So as I said, there are some examples that we see and sometimes unconsciously do, but are called microaggressions. And unfortunately, these still happen every day and are sometimes linked to bias, racism, stereotypes, and others. I can see some, okay. So considering that most of the microaggressions are unconscious and driven really by mental shortcuts, the probability is that either we've done them or they have been done to us. So the best way to ignore or try to avoid challenges that we might have because of these microaggressions is to promote some response mechanisms of how we can be confront or how we can confront those microaggressions. And again, they are not rocket science, but it's a starting point for the change in the mindset that we want to integrate. So assume that there is no malicious intent. People do it. We do it every day without with unconsciously thinking about it. Approach the situation with a positive attitude. Give the individual the benefit of the doubt. So if someone is telling you, oh, you look Asian, or are you Chinese because you look Asian, it doesn't mean that there's an intention behind it, but actually give the individual the benefit of the doubt. Discuss your feelings about the impact of these incidents and try to understand the situation and be empathetic. So microaggressions happen and will keep on happening. Again, it's because of a lot of background that is built in our mindset. Those are mental shortcuts that the mind does to be able to react quickly. But what we need to know and be aware of is that those microaggressions, unfortunately, happen, and they do demoralize people and create a feeling of exclusion, which we want to try to avoid. So again, creating an inclusive world is an uphill battle, really. But all we need to do is start somewhere. So these three, thinking about inclusive behaviors, thinking about inclusive language, and avoiding microaggressions is a starting point. Recently, what's good and what's positive is that we have started seeing many inspiring stories and people influencing the transformation when it comes to inclusion. We have seen some champions and organizations leading in their own ways. We have started seeing the fashion industry, for example, enforcing or reinforcing brand messages to show all people of different ages, shapes, races, rather than a touched up high fashion models in their marketing assets. We have seen companies draw more attention to differently abled individuals. For example, in the clothing industry, it's very simple, but believe it or not, these things haven't been considered before. Or even video gaming capabilities, like Microsoft and other companies, where also they made sure to make their video gaming capabilities acceptable for differently abled individuals. We see toys and dolls like Barbie moving away from promoting unrealistic body images and becoming much more inclusive. Beyond that, we cannot also overlook the power of some individuals who played important roles and personal influencers in fostering inclusion. So reality is there are many, many, many examples of changes that we see every day in our everyday life. But reality is that it all takes a shift in mindset and willingness to change the norms, to gear up for an inclusive society and challenge the way that we have built our shortcuts and biases and stereotypes in our minds to start to become more inclusive. And again, this doesn't take a CEO to lead the way. It doesn't take or big organizations or big investments. All it takes is for us to become pioneers of inclusion, invest in that purpose. And this is all about the world that we want to live in and we want to create for the next generation. So you know it, be a champion for it. In reality, you've talked, I mean, about also my book that's coming soon. It's called Inclusion Starts With You. It's going to be published by end of August, and it talks a lot about many tips and tricks that everyone, corporate and non-corporate, can do to really promote inclusion in our societies, in our communities, and on the individual level. So thank you so much. I'm gonna try to see if I have any questions.
You do have questions, I think, so gracefully you've answered many of them, Sarah, online, and appreciate that. But I do have one question which needs a little bit of elaboration. So
sure.
It's great to start talking about, as you rightly said, is it only a corporate topic? And I'll be very brutally honest with you. It has been a corporate topic for a very, very long time in all the places that I have worked and seen in many, many organizations, irrespective of geographies.
Yeah.
If it is not just a corporate topic, but there are other consequences that are unmanageable at times, sadly. Yeah. But that's the reality, which I'm sure you touch upon, and we all know it's one of those secrets that we don't talk about much. But having said that, I have one question for you, which is like this. Now, is D&I such a topic that we give it a lot more preference to expertise and contribution from employees? This is a question from the audience, so I think it warrants an expanded explanation, if you don't mind.
No, thank you so much actually for asking this question, because also I've seen it in one of the questions that came earlier on the chat and on the app. Reality is, it's true, because of the push, as you mentioned, on the corporate level to have a diverse workforce. It seems that it is more KPI related. And again, as I said at the beginning of my presentation, that unfortunately, because D&I has been overused so many times, it lost its meaning. Some companies want to tick the box. You know, they just want to tick the box because they have to do it, and they want to look that as if, you know, they are fitting into expectations of the talent. And the reality is that what's dangerous about ticking the box is the bias that is happening, unfortunately, and I'm gonna say it, you know, against men sometimes in the hiring processes that we see. Some privileges are given for women when they don't have the competencies and the skills, because it's just a tick in the box to improve diversity of the workforce. And this is where I think diversity and inclusion champions across organizations have to play a bigger role in incorporating in talent acquisition, so hiring, making sure that actually men and women are given equal opportunities. But reality is, since today we need to do that extra effort to improve diversity, when we have equal competencies, we might want to decide to go for example, women, if we need to improve our diversity measures, not because it's a tick in the box, it's because we want realistically to improve diversity, to bring in more innovation and perspective. That is different than the way we have been working on. But the key element of what I said is equal competencies and skills. Unfortunately, in this time, this is where we are. 5 years, 10 years from now, I hope that we won't even need to talk about this, because whenever you know, we don't even need to look into gender. And this is something that we have started seeing in some regions of the country where, you know, CVs don't have to mention even gender, you know. So today we still need to do that push to look for diverse workforce that could have equal competencies. In the future, we hope that it's not. Unfortunately, there are some dangerous things that are happening today because some think it's a tick in the box, and this is where diversity and inclusion champions should drive more and influence the way we do things from the hiring and other perspectives.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I just wish to, if you don't mind, add to whatever you have said so far. There is somewhere that I talked about, I came across the benefits of DNI, not just
Yes.
why it should be there. I mean, it's just, nice thing to have. It talks of great things to your organization. But now there are some research that has been done, especially in the US, by a company called Human Intelligence, and they've done some fantastic work. I just thought I'll share that here. In terms of trying to find that diversity and inclusion, companies that have adopted that as a corporate initiative, and those that have not, and they've done a financial analysis in terms of growth rate, profitability, bottom line, revenue, and so on and so forth. And they found close to 30–35% increase in having a bit more diverse and more inclusive workforce. Probably it's different geographies. I'm not an expert in it. I just thought I'll share that with you as well.
Actually, as you righteously said, it's true. And this is why today I didn't focus much on I wanted just to align that and say that a lot of research has been done to make that as a fact that yes, diversity and inclusion, and not only diversity or inclusion alone, does impact the bottom line. There's a lot of research there. Some of it is in my book. We can also find some good examples of companies that have really changed the way they operate because they have looked at that aspect. So a lot of research is there. It's a fact. It's a scientific fact. And the good thing is that because it has started 10 years ago, today we can say that we have enough data, at least, to see the trends and be able to compare companies and their investments, where their investments are happening. So thank you for what you've shared. And again, there's a lot out there. Josh Burson has talked a lot about it. Deloitte, Ernst & Young. So if people are interested to read more, definitely there's a lot of research out there that could help.
And also, we take that topic very seriously, and that's one of the reasons we have not just one, we have 2 panels in the coming days on diversity, inclusion, equity, and empowerment. Unfortunately, I believe we are traveling at this time of the year, so you're not able to join us, but there's always the next time, Sarah. Thank you so very much for being part of our. Thank you very much.
And I'll connect. If there are other questions coming on the app, I would definitely answer some of those. Thank you, and have a great rest of the day.
And you, thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye.